Let's see first why we should fight biology and build actual objective truth in ourselves. It's not that you win that much by being in team truth. So truth by itself doesn't give you huge personal, psychological game of self advantage. It's more about how much you can lose, how much we can lose if we end up somewhere in the bullshit coalition. Because you can end up in kind of better places, which is, let's say, the better spiritual movements, but you can end up, let's say, in ISIS, where you are brainwashed that blowing yourself to death is the best thing that you can do with your life. So you lose control over where you end up in the bullshit coalition, because everything becomes about emotions, everything becomes about the things that your psychology needs but doesn't have, things like universal unconditional love and human attention, and you can end up like in a good place, more or less, or in a very, very bad place. And there is no middle path between being in team truth and in the bullshit coalition, because when you're in team truth, you are resistant to bullshit, you have the tools to resist. While when you're in the bullshit coalition, you're surrounded by other people who are in the bullshit coalition somewhere, and there's no one around to really uphold the truth and fight for it. And you gradually, even if you more or less had it, you lose the ability to even see and fight for the truth. There's no middle path. You either love the idea of truth and fight for it, or you leave yourself to the evolutionary forces, like the natural way, business as usual, which will lead you into one of the many bullshit camps. And if this happens, we lose touch with reality, at least in some parts of our life, which hinders our potential in the game of life, where objectivity and understanding ourselves and the world are the key to success, because we want to acquire resources, build good structures, and in this case, we need to know what we're doing. We need to know the truth. But if our beliefs are useful, is it important if they are true? Maybe we are built like this biologically for a reason. The problem is that false beliefs, even if they are useful, like most false beliefs and most of the bullshit, is that they generate a ton of secondary false beliefs. Information is like a network structure. There are cause and effects. Let's say there's a structure, there's influence, and if you believe something that is wrong, you immediately start believing more secondary beliefs that are also wrong. But if your initial belief is useful, won't it also be secondary useful beliefs? Well, no, it doesn't work like that. Those two things, the usefulness and the objectivity, they work differently. Why? Because secondary beliefs are not useful, because the super useful beliefs come from the concept of flows, which is like things that you cannot really get wrong, things you cannot really overdo. These are things such as self-love, unconditional love, the strive for your freedom, respect for others, being creative, being motivated. These things you cannot really overdo. They're just great. And let's say that we have a statement like self-love is essential for good mental health. An obviously true statement. Okay, this is a useful belief. It's probably also a true belief, but let's focus that it's useful. Okay, let's try and generate a good secondary belief. Something that comes from this, and it's not the same statement, because then it would not be a secondary belief, it would be the same belief. Okay, try. I challenge you, try. Self-love is great, and it's great. That's all there is to it. You don't need justification. It just is. There's no different types of self-love. It's a flow. You cannot divide it. Same with unconditional love. I'll give you another statement. Unconditional love is always good. We're talking about feeling unconditional love, not like doing stupid things because of that, just the feeling. Unconditional love is great. Okay, try and make a secondary belief. You can't. It's a flow. It already goes to all of the good places. This principle can help you in a lot of areas in life. For example, in a lot of conflict, it can help you. And it's just this. Unconditional love is always good. This is all there is. Of course, this again does not mean that you do stupid things because you do unconditional love. You should still hold your ground, protect your interests, and not allow someone that you love unconditionally do harm to you. But this is on the behavioral level. On the emotional level, unconditional love is good. And there's not a lot that you can take from this. And a third example, long-term freedom is always beneficial. It's always good to be able to do more stuff, because then you can choose potentially better options. And again, what can you take from this? Well, not really. That's all there is. So all of the really, really, really useful beliefs, they are flows. They come from the main flows like love and self-love and meaning and respect. And when you have those, that's it. It's not about believing the right thing. It's about getting them integrate it into your life so you live striving for long-term freedom, so you live with self-love, so you live with unconditional love. Well, that's the hard thing. It's not hard to just make a chain of statements. This is empty. The real thing is you need to feel those and live them. And if you had a really good, useful belief, which is a core flow, secondary beliefs become useless. But on the other hand, if you believe something that is untrue, if you believe in some bullshit, it generates problematic secondary beliefs. Now, let's look at some examples. We may take a false belief, yet marginally useful. For example, carrying this charm will protect me from harm, some superstition. Okay, this is false, but kind of useful because it gives you peace of mind without actually influencing the chances of harm unless you're really reckless. So okay, we can say that this is marginally useful and false. How does this translate to secondary beliefs? Can you generate a useful belief out of a false belief? Well, actually not really, because this belief is false, and if you generate, and you will generate, other false beliefs from it, they will no longer be useful. They will become less useful the more steps you make, belief generating belief, and this one is a slippery slope. Your biology tells you, believe this is useful, makes us feel better, you believe it, even though it's objectively false, and then you start believing more and more false things. This is how you lose touch with reality. All of this explains why we never evolved to care about the effects of secondary beliefs. The Stone Age, life was simple, short, violent. There was no space and time for secondary beliefs. And they did not affect us nearly as much as they do today, because in the modern age, in a complicated world where we live long lives and compete in more abstract fields for success and happiness rather than survival, secondary beliefs have a huge influence. But when we evolved, there were almost no such things as secondary beliefs. Here's a modern example from a very famous political turnaround in US political history. Imagine you're a United States factory worker, a job that used to be middle class some time ago, in Pennsylvania, in the Rust Belt, and this job you lose due to outsourcing it somewhere overseas, globalization basically. What's the useful thing to believe? Well, you need to make a leap of faith. The useful thing to believe is optimism. You can always reinvent yourself. You can learn new skills. You can succeed against the odds, because can you? You can. Will you? Well, that's another question, but can you? Absolutely yes. The useful thing to believe is that fighting for the well-being of your family, that you have to feed, you have to put food on the table, fighting for your community, your friends who may be in a similar hard time, fighting for your loved ones in times of crisis makes you a hero. Simple and beautiful. It gives you every reason to live your life with fulfillment, with pride. And this is what the story can look like. But let's see what happens when you touch the bullshit coalition. A populist politician from the bullshit coalition holds a Pennsylvania rally to specifically send you the clear message that you're a victim, that the politicians from the other party are to blame, of course. No-brainer. Those greedy globalist, neoliberal, sociopath motherfuckers outsource everything to China and Mexico, left you in the dust. You're a victim, and on the surface, this is close to the truth. It's not the whole truth. There are pieces of truth intentionally left out, because this is how capitalism works. We signed up for this game. This is the system of the world. And the problem is that it's most of the truth, but not the whole truth. And unlike the truth, which is always impartial, remember it's an ideal, not a force, here there's an agenda, there's a direction of emotional manipulation. They tell you you're a victim in order to make you angry so they can harvest the energy of your anger. And once there is a direction, an agenda, a story, and your emotions take over, it doesn't matter what the initial percentage of truth was, even if it was high, because they didn't completely lie to you. They told you a story with a lot of truth in it about the outsourcing the job. But secondary beliefs take over. The fact that your job gets outsourced to Mexico distorts your belief about Mexico without having the correct data points about it. For example, if a Mexican immigrant comes to Pennsylvania, even though they will likely not come exactly to Pennsylvania, they will go to the southern states, but if, in theory, a Mexican immigrant comes to Pennsylvania, they say, oh, the fucking Mexicans that stole our jobs, even though the immigrant that comes from Mexico is certainly not the one who stole your job, because he probably didn't have a good job in Mexico, and this is why they come to the US to find a better job. So it's definitely not their fault. But now You have this in the back of your mind, say, these Mexican fuckers. It's the same with China, with globalization. You just get all of the truth distorted in your secondary beliefs. When you get cheap imported goods, for example, when you get goods that include rare earth minerals mined in China, well, then globalization is great. But when we lose our job because our factory moves to China, fuck globalization. Chinese are the worst. Globalization, greedy motherfuckers are the worst. So when huge corporations like Amazon exploit hundreds of thousands of expendable workers to support same-day deliveries, it's great because we get our delivery in the same day. Where are all the people boycotting Amazon? But when we are the expendable ones, it's not great anymore. That's just how humans work. It's normal. But the problem is that this is our darker side and we have a better side. And everything got distorted. Being a hero story, which we could internalize, that we could really make our own, it got changed into an ugly and not objectively completely true victim story because of our interaction with the bullshit coalition, where they manipulated us in order to use it to get our vote. And they gave us a harmful story that is the opposite of useful. They only pretended to give you a useful story, and you gave them more trust than needed, and in the end, they get your vote, they increase the power of their group, their tribe. Make no mistake, they completely knew what they were doing. This was just done in cold-blooded conscience. That's just how ugly politics is and how it works. The saddest part is that you already have a true and beautiful story that you can make it, despite all odds. I can do anything and survive against all odds is always true, because you can. Your potential is always there. You always can. And this is true and beautiful and inspiring. And instead, they gave us this stupid victim story. Instead of leaning into the better side of our biology again, because the option of being a hero is built into us. Due to evolution selecting for cooperation in the tribe and even risking it all for the tribe, making sacrifices for the social group, we have it built into our biology, the option of being a hero. The problem is that someone just got there and cancelled the option. They gave us much worse options. The populist politicians dared to come with their bullshit and replaced this true and useful story into one that is not true, not useful, and generates very wrong secondary beliefs about countries you never went to. So they made you weak, they gave you someone to love and to hate, and just move to the next city to do the same. It's an extremely sad story. And of course, they made sure to run TV and internet ads in order to reinforce what you were just potentially manipulated in. So really ugly story. And do you see how not respecting the truth highly enough, how it backfires? Because you started out without having like a knowledge, a feel of how the world works, how politicians work. You didn't strive for the truth and you fell a victim of the bullshit. And you need to fight for the truth proactively. There's no force. Truth is not a force. You need to be the force. And remember, from this dark example, the worse the intentions around you, the more truth you need to survive and thrive. Because it's much easier to manipulate someone than fight them if you have bad intentions. People will always first try to manipulate you, and then they will try to fight you. So the more evil, the worse the intentions you have around you, the more truth you will need to have in you, the more tools you will need to have in you for discerning the truth in order to be resilient. And guess what? In the end, no one will fight you because they will manipulate others successfully in a large part, and they will never get to fighting you. So you will not be fought in the end. You will become a member of the truth team, while the bullshit coalitions fight mostly between each other. The government and big companies are the typical bullshit actors. They have the main intention to build and keep control over you. That's what they do. That's what large systems do. It's just Darwinistic forces. The systems that govern their evolution, the driving forces themselves forge them in such a way. It's not the fault of single people. It's not that everyone working in Coca-Cola or McDonald's a very bullshit infested government. It's not that it's the fault of the people there. It's the system. The system which, of course, selects for not the best people, as we said, with the incentives. Bullshit is the main tool of control over the masses because of our biological susceptibility to it. As long as we're coping using bullshit, they would provide it in unlimited quantities. So we have to constantly resist. It's a constant fight, no way around it. Truth is your shield against bullshit. In this fakery-dominated world, you cannot survive unscared without having the truth shield. This is why it's worth investing the time, the energy, and the focus in this messy, noisy world to forge this shield. even if at first sight this doesn't look like a very productive investment of your limited resources. To forge a big-ass expensive shield just for this, which doesn't directly grant you anything in this transactional world. But as usual, in what I call vibe systems, everything truly great creates positive ripples, endless positive ripples around. Think about it this way. In order to be successful in the game of life, you have to understand it, to know how it all clicks, how it matches, how it works. The world is like a Swiss watch with all of the small gears that just click and they move each other. So you have to understand how everything in the world clicks and moves. In order to understand the world, you need the shield of truth. Otherwise, everything is distorted due to the bullshit everywhere, just telling false stories about everything. Actually, not false, even worse. Partially true, partially false. So it's much harder to spot the bullshit. And think it this way. If no one else has the truth shield and only you do, if only you can find the bullshit, if you have the competitive advantage, imagine how successful you can be. All of the other people, they will see just partially how the world works at best, while you can see how the whole world works. You will see all of the relationships. This would result in endless great business ideas and product ideas and anything you need to have tons of money and freedom. And the fact that forging this shield is not biologically programmed into us and takes resisting our natural tribal instincts, this holds everyone back, not just you. But when you know it holds everyone back, you have double the incentive to go and crush those barriers and fight for the truth, even though it's not a biological thing. And in fact, it's not that hard, because once you know that the biology is the problem, it becomes easier, because most people have the very wrong and inaccurate view that they are biologically attracted to the truth, because we live with this idea that, okay, it's a biological evolutionary advantage to know the truth, so biology should try to get us to know the truth. We want to know the truth. But the thing is that it doesn't work. You cannot brute force your, let's say, love for the truth, because you cannot brute force love of any kind. We'll talk about this in a minute. Once you know your true allies, which are not biology, they are flows, things like energy, motivation, curiosity, love, and the intelligence-defining power of human prediction, which is the main thing that separates your brain from an animal brain. Humans are insanely good at predicting, while animals can't predict shit. So this is how you can turn the tables around. Biology is in the enemy camp. It's out there. It's very powerful, very predictable. So you can play around and get the best of it. You can trick it. You can use the power of flows and even its own desires. For example, you're in high school, you don't feel like learning science. Science is boring. How about the pretty girl in science class that you want to hang out with? Okay, suddenly want to learn science. Took 3 seconds and one thought, but the right one, strategic thought, to commit yourself to a good direction, and then you follow it. It's tricky, of course, to self-manipulate yourself like this. Don't lie to yourself about it being hard. Tricky is not hard, it's just being a skill that you can learn. It's not hard.